Rich, when you're coaching people or just advising us, fellow Toastmasters on subject matter, are there any topics or subjects that you steer people away from, or you think that's not appropriate subject matter for speech?
Well, let's talk specifically about the international contest, which the criteria is simply give a speech. It doesn't have anything in terms of what you have to talk about or what you can't talk about. For an international contest speech, you have to consider your audience. And you're going to have a broad audience, age, sex, experience, career choices. You don't know exactly who you're talking to at any given time. So that's why most of the international topics are inspirational in nature, because we've all needed inspiration at some point, and usually my own subject matter tends to come from my kids. That's why I kept having them. That's how I got to sit, because I needed to keep competing. But we've all been kids. Many of us have had kids. So those are experiences that you can draw from. We can draw experiences from our life in general. How do we find a way to make them relatable to other people? A lot of people want to talk about the marathon they ran or the climb to Mount Everest. And those are fine as long as you're able to bring what you learned from that experience down to the level of the average person. Where would they have learned it, or where could they apply the lesson? In terms of topics you want to avoid, political topics, because you'll divide your audience and you're going to lose half the judges if you want to talk about specifically reaching the judges. Anything controversial is really a ticket to get out of the contest early. In the real world, anything goes. You talk about what you want to talk about. Contest, not so much.
We've been talking mostly about Toastmaster speeches. What about impromptu speaking? You're comfortable in interviews. You played Simon Cowell to a T and got rave reviews at our District 60 Idol contest. But what about impromptu speaking? Some of the topics, subjects you talked about here. What can people think about for impromptu speaking to do a good job with that?
Well, the best way to learn how to do impromptu speaking, obviously, is in Toastmasters, doing table topics, but preparing yourself. I know it seems like an oxymoron to be prepared to do unprepared speaking. But the more you do it, the more you learn how to build connections in your brain from the question to what it is you want to talk about. A lot of the questions you've asked me, I've answered hundreds of times in the last 10 years, and so I'm able to draw back into my data bank as to how I'm going to answer the question. A lot of other times it's simply a matter of having some views and being willing to state your opinion and not worry about the risk involved in that. This impromptu speaking we come up with in job interviews and around the water cooler, just in general. We're all always talking. But then suddenly when it becomes an interview, we get more self-conscious. We have to just be willing, again, it's maybe a boring note at this point, but be yourself.
I want to talk about you as a roaring success and your ideas on failure. I know that failure is an important topic to you, and tell us about failure.
I don't believe in failure anymore. I used to believe in failure. Now I believe in finding your victory within the failure. The world likes to tell us we're a failure, but we don't have to live the way the world tells us to live. We don't have to view our lives the way the world tells us to view our lives. Even if you don't achieve the sales goal you wanted to meet, even if you don't have the perfect family that you always wanted to have, you still have things in the experience that are going to mark some achievement. There are going to be opportunities for you to learn. There's an old saying that says, the only time you have truly failed is when you have not learned from your failure. So find a way to approach whatever goal you want to achieve with the idea that even if I don't achieve this, I want to learn these things. I want to try to accomplish these things as well on the way. And you can always find that victory within the journey.
So for you, what's next? What are your coming goals? I know we've got your two books here. that are printed, and we talked about there's maybe some more in the works. And what other goals do you have?
Well, writing a couple of more books is certainly it. I want to write my Win Anyway book, which is based on my keynote of the same name, and have it be more a book about me. The two books I've done in the past have both been compilations of my speeches and other people's speeches with some analysis involved. And I need to do what I've called on all my clients to do, which is reveal themselves. So my Win Anyway book will be that, and then I'll also be working on a Speak and Deliver book based on the advice I give in my blog on public speaking. I may compete in the spring, you never know.
Yeah, we'll look forward.
Sometimes it's hard to avoid competing when you're eligible, so I kept myself ineligible for 2 years.
Can we talk about that? So what made you ineligible, Rich?
Leadership, one of the cornerstones of Toastmasters.
What kind of leadership role did you take on?
I took on an area governor role. I've been in Toastmasters for 14 years, and I'd achieved all the awards, but not my distinguished Toastmaster. So I wanted to take a year off from competing, or two. So I thought, okay, well, let's focus on the leadership track instead of the communication track. So I announced as an area governor and made myself ineligible for 1 year, and then I served as an area governor and was ineligible for a second year. But as area governor, obviously, for most of you, you know that I supervised a number of clubs and helped make sure that they stayed thriving and vibrant, trying to be there for the presidents when I could be. And it turned out well. I ended up as a distinguished area governor because my clubs really stepped up and did what they needed to do.
Well, I'm sure they stepped up when they saw you step into the room and say, hey, I'm here to help. What a resource. It would be great to have Rich Hopkins be your area governor. How many clubs were in your area?
I started with 5, ended with 6.
Brilliant, brilliant. So did you have something to do with growing that new club?
I was at the demo meeting. Does that count?
Sure, yeah, I'm sure bringing you in anywhere is going to draw a crowd. Any more questions from the group? Let me check my notes here.
Just there's 2 area governors in the room right now. So what's your top 3 pieces of advice that you could give to them?
Visit your clubs, not just for your area visit, but in general. Let them know who you are and make them feel really free to get in touch with you. Let other people build your area contest. Don't feel like you have to take over and handle everything, because you don't. There are a lot of other people with talent in your area that can step up and fill those roles. And for the district governor's sake, get your reports in on time.
Yes!
Yeah, the paperwork matters. Now, Toastmasters is during your career with Toastmasters, they've gone through their brand refresh, they've gone through the new tagline where leaders are made, and not everybody embraced it right away. I think maybe you didn't. How do you feel about Toastmasters now as a communication and leadership organization?
Well, communication and leadership go hand in hand. If you're going to be a great leader, you're going to have to become a great communicator. And I think we've seen a lot of examples of leaders that we all thought were going to be strong until they opened their mouths. But we've also seen examples of great speakers when they run, but then as leaders, they really fall short. So Toastmasters is working to let the world know that we work to create both. That the two need to go together for you to truly reach the potential that you can as both a speaker and a leader.
So for people in Toastmasters clubs going to meetings, working on a CC, is that an appropriate time for them to think about getting a coach early in their Toastmasters thing? Or when's the right time to say, maybe I could use a speaking coach?
Well, it depends on their goals. I mean, you get some people coming in and they're terrified of public speaking. They're not thinking about getting a coach. What they want is a mentor within Toastmasters. Toastmasters has their own setup to assign you a mentor and help you through the Toastmasters program. But other people join Toastmasters, they do their first 10 speeches, and you wonder why they're in Toastmasters at all. Well, they're there because they want more experience, and maybe they want to launch themselves.